Good evening, folks. It's Thursday night, and we're back with another episode of Aftermarket. I'm James Black, and I'm joined by my co-host,
Barrington Miller.
and this week we've got an awesome guest joining us in the booth. None other than Mr. Maruf Raza from MMP. We'll hear from him right after the beat.
Do you know my name?
Thanks again for tuning in and for watching. This is Aftermarket. I'm JB. I'm with Bear. And this week we are joined by a close friend, business associate, Mr. Maruf Raza from MNP, formerly known as Myers Norris Penny. And here's my pump-up job for you, Maruf. Arguably the most interesting accountant I know in the world.
Thanks, man. That's not saying much, but thank you anyway. It's I was gonna say you guys are such naturals at this, man. Like you guys have just done phenomenal. And I'm not saying that you genuinely, Richard Carlton needs to be worried because you guys are just a bit too natural. You were just going up and up every episode, and then now you hit rock bottom. You got this guy.
Well, you sponsored. Well, Barrington, maybe let's get through some of the formalities of our sponsorships.
So it turns out Maruf and his team at MNP have been longtime supporters and advocates of the Canadian Securities Exchange and the capital markets as a whole, across Canada, different regions. The one thing about MNP that a lot of people may not know is that the people you meet in the Quebec offices, in the Ottawa office, in Toronto, in Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Calgary, Vancouver, they're all the same. They're all really nice, really, really helpful. They are a company that acts and walks and talks like the Big Four, but they're not the Big Four.
Yes,
that's my point.
Not to we appreciate MMP because they're very entrepreneurial, and I think what we want to dive into a little bit today is some of our shared journeys in business the last few years. And yeah, a big credit to your firm and yourself, Maruf, for a lot of the trailblazing you've done in the corners you've gone into, that your peers haven't gone into, and no disrespect to a lot of the other great people we know at other firms, but certainly MMP has been there every step of the way with us when it comes to things like cannabis and blockchain, esports, psychedelics. I mean, all these frontier industries that have been capitalized on our marketplace, but also weren't the first, sectors a lot of these other companies would be willing to jump into because I think of perceived risk or just misunderstandings. And maybe just, Maruf, can you comment on sort of that culture that allows you guys to go and do that? I assume it's not just like, desperation to compete. It's a cultural thing, as Barrington alludes to.
Yeah, I mean, you look, firstly, like I probably don't need to say a damn thing for the rest of the thing because you guys have just done such a good job of encapsulating our spiel that we normally say. And it's not a spiel; it's I think it's real. I think, and look, we don't want to disparage any of the firms. There are lots of good firms out there. Great people at the Big Four. I think for us, it comes down to it, James. That's really our operative word is being entrepreneurial, right? We work well with people who are entrepreneurial. So in our case, that's the CSE because you guys have the exact same spirit, and that's why we jumped in and the same things that we jumped in with. And we obviously cannabis is the big thing in the room, but it's not just cannabis, right? We've done so many things like that. And I think that I think for us, we just have that little bit of separation. Like you certainly have good people who are entrepreneurial at other firms, at other exchanges, but there's just a little bit of a difference. I think there's just a little bit of extra. And so when we meet other entrepreneurs, they look at us and they feel like we get it, maybe just a little bit more. And so I think that's really been our, sort of our theme for success. And I think when you guys talked about James, is that esports, crypto, blockchain, cannabis. Look, sometimes it works out brilliantly, right? Like cannabis. Other times it doesn't. Like so, we jumped into crypto and then we all jumped out, right? Because we tried. I think everybody else is like, let's let's figure it out. Let's think and think and think, and then let's do it. Well, the markets don't wait for that, right? And so you guys know that, we know that, and so it's the speed of change is not like it was before. Whether you're an accounting firm or an exchange, you have to be up on that.
I still remember. I remember one of the first trips. Though it was during my first time to MJ Biz, and Maruf, you may or may not remember this.
I don't remember it.
But we were there, and we were on the show floor, and we're walking around. We're walking around together, and we would go and we would talk to a company, talk to a booth, and they would ask me a question about going public or listing or whatever, and then they might have an accounting question, and I went, "Oh, it just so happens that I have one of the foremost accountants in Canada standing right here." And then they would turn and go, "Oh, okay, that's cool." And then they would start talking, and then a small group would start
They never
forming.
for a second said that's cool.
And then a small group started forming around us, and then it dawned on both of us, like, "Hey, let's just walk around together. Let's have this little one-stop shopping, so that people don't have to stray very far to get the answers to the questions that they have." And that's what we did. I still remember going down one aisle, and then it turned into the, "Hey, I'm going to pitch you on this, and I know you're going to want to know accounting. Here, talk to Maruf." And then Maruf would do the same thing, like, "Hey, are you interested in going public? Make sure you have audited financials and blah, blah, blah. And here's a stock exchange." And it was that sort of relationship. It wasn't planned. It just happened organically. And I think that goes a long way to explaining how this relationship continues. It continues with the fact that James and I are proudly wearing, MNP gear.
Absolutely, yes.
Where did you get that from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but
Exactly.
honestly, you guys do that really well, though. I mean, I would say you do that better than anybody else, including us, it's your great connectors, right? Like you're always thinking about who else. Sure, these guys are going public, but then what else? And look, obviously, accountants and lawyers and investment banks, those are the obvious choices. Like everybody knows that. But you guys are actually thinking about other things. Like you're saying, hey, have you thought about this like IR thing here? And have you thought about, and like you guys have to give credit to yourselves. I mean, as much as we think we're great partners for you guys, but I think you deserve a lot of the credit that you've created the success that you deserve.
Well, thank you, and we definitely appreciate that. And I'm going to do a quick plug. Outside of cannabis, because we've talked a lot about it, we're currently doing a project called Mining Over Canada. It is being spearheaded by our very own Anna Sarin, and we will be examining CSE mining and mineral exploration companies from the East Coast to the West Coast, from the North to the South. And MNP has decided to go on this journey as well. Now, the roots of MNP sort of started in agriculture. Can you tell us a little bit about that, about a little Canadiana and MNP?
Yeah, I mean, so MNP, we it started in the prairies. It was a very culturally agricultural firm. I think literally the story was, one of our founders went in a minivan farm to farm doing farm taxes. Whatever that was,
Wow.
50, 60 years ago.
Wow, that's awesome.
And then it morphed, right? It morphed into, okay, we're going to be a prairie firm. And so then we did a bunch of prairie stuff, and then we're like, okay, we're going to go west, but not east. Those east guys, yeah, a little bit shaky, right? And then eventually it just grew into like, about 10, 15 years ago, saying, hey, we want to be the dominant Canadian firm. So sure, there's other firms doing other things, but we want to be the coast to coast Canadian firm representing all aspects of, honestly, Canadiana, whether that's a farmer to a Bay Street or Vancouver mining guy, right? And what connected everything was that they were all entrepreneurs, right? They were
Right.
not like, fourth generation, sitting on $10 billion. It was all made money And that was when you look at, if you connect the dots, that's one thing that all of our clients have, is that they made it, right? They're the ones that did it. And so, so for us, and what's been great is the fact, because we came from, I would say, not the urban centers, you would normally think we'd come from. It's affected our culture in a very positive and meaningful way, right? Because I mean, look, I don't want to we all live. The three of us live in Toronto. I mean, James from Vancouver. I don't want to disparage any urban centers, but there's a certain speed and thing that you move in those urban centers. Whereas because we came from somewhere else, we were very cognizant of not being those guys, right? So even the guys who are from Toronto, we've tried to take some of those positives away, from the other parts of MNP.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, because we had on an earlier episode of this program, we debated, how much, and if people in Calgary and Edmonton still hate each other, sort of like Springfield and Shelbyville. And it's good to know that outside of all those, rivalries there, I agree with you, because I'm actually not from Vancouver. I'm from everywhere. I grew up everywhere across Canada, because my dad moved us around a lot, and I've had the privilege of living pretty much in every major city and visiting every major city. And the prairies have its own vibe. It's very, you are what you do, and it's less of the talk and more of the work. And I think we can see that in what you guys have built. So that's something I really resonates with me, as far as just, with anyone I want to work with, is let the work speak for itself, and then let's have a good time afterwards when the job is done,
Totally.
And then also, I can't do what you did though, and walk, like Chris Angel down the halls of a Vegas convention floor and get mobbed by eager tourists. But so here, I got some questions. So we've been through a lot of stuff. We mentioned sectors and things like crypto and psychedelics, and mining over Canada, which I'm super excited for, because stay tuned, there will be more programming about that. Let's just go into cannabis for a sec, and we talked last week with Jay Rosenthal, I'll link above, about the transition from that industry into psychedelics, but just taking stock of where that cannabis industry is at, and where you guys on the accounting side really had to take a hard gut check at one point and go, are we going to be in this or not? And maybe just walk me through how that decision was made, how quick it was, if it was even a hard decision. Because I know that MNP was one of the first to kind of say, yeah, we'll look at these books. We'll put our name on some of this stuff. You were there, so tell me kind of what happened in Cole's Notes forms.
Yeah, I mean, look, so I think there's the Canadian story, and then there's the US story, which is a little bit different, right?
Sure, yeah.
The Canadian story was circa, whatever, 13, 14, when the first batch of those companies were coming. And so, we sort of, a couple of our guys stood up, David Danziger and Glenn Fraser, to give them a shout out internally.
Yeah, big time.
And they basically went to our board, and it wasn't an automatic decision, right? Because there was big stigmas around
for sure,
drugs and cannabis, right? But I think ultimately, and this is where I think the entrepreneurial side came out, our board sat back and said, well, look, this is a federally legal business, right? I mean, sure, everybody can cast their own morality judgment, but this is not about morality, this is about legality, right? And so, and so we got in. And what's interesting is 2 years later, nobody could even remember that there was this big discussion around, morality and ethics. It had become the norm. And fast forward to a lot of firms, I guess, never got past that first thing, right? Which is, well, is it the right thing? Well, even in one firm, even you have an organization of 100 people, 30 people can think differently than the other 30 people. So who's right and who's wrong, right? The question is about, hey, this is a completely legal sector that is blessed by the government, blessed by Health Canada, right? And so, why is this? And so early on, we had those discussions. Why is this different than opiates? I mean, it is totally different than opiates in a good way, right? But why would you be okay with doing big pharma and an opiate deal, but not a cannabis deal? So but we didn't want to get into those discussions, right? Because then you're getting into your own personal judgment, right? So then we sit back, and so ultimately the entrepreneurial side won, the logical side won, and so then of course you came to the U.S. issue, and and we have all dealt with this so close that as you guys obviously had many of the same issues thrown at you, and it was because obviously there's the dichotomy of the U.S. federally not okay, state level okay. And so for us, it ultimately became a decision to say, look, how can we say we're the main firm in cannabis, right? And not be in the biggest cannabis market in the world, right? You can't avoid it. So we got in, but we had a lot of checks and balances, right? Like we couldn't send staff across the border, right? This was during the Sessions era when people were getting banned, right?
Call memorandums and
yeah.
all that.
So
Yeah.
so that one was a much more different risk discussion, but ultimately we landed on the right side of it, obviously in our opinion. But it wasn't without its challenges.
Interesting. Yeah, no, it was. I always think back to the people being concerned, 2 years ago at MJ Biz, if they're going to get nabbed at the border, and
Yeah.
going into the U.S. and now, well, can't even go over the border, but
go to the U.S.
until November. But good luck.
So right
Yeah.
now, I was doing before we came on the show. I was I was doing prep notes for another conference that's coming up called the Renaissance of Psychedelics. And it so happened that I was working on the section of questions that I would be asking Maruf, and we'll just do a little preview here. How is psychedelics not like cannabis?
So I think that obviously it's comparable in the context of the people coming in terms of the money, right? Not talking about the people at the operational R&D level, but the money is similar, right? So people think, oh, it is kind of. I'll tell you. So initially, I was like, wow, psychedelics, like who cares, right? I mean, in the context of from size of market. I've changed my tune in that I think that as a blue sky opportunity, psychedelics is way bigger than cannabis, right? Because if you're saying, hey, look, this thing can potentially help PTSD, depression, mental health, I mean, that market dwarfs anything that cannabis is going to do. I think the counter of that is when there's no path to revenue for these companies, right? This is an R&D biopharma play, right?
Yeah.
So absolutely, you have some ketamine clinics, and you have there'll be some revenue. You have a little bit of recreational stuff, coming from Holland, but ultimately, the real path to revenue doesn't exist. Whereas when these cannabis companies went public, even at the earliest date, you had the revenue model in hand. Go and build it, right? You have a path to licensing and you have a path to revenue, right? Just in the medical side. But my big worry on the psychedelic side is that this is on nobody's political agenda, right? And so is it 5 years? Is it 10 years? 3 years? We don't know. So as long as the money is patient and understands that this is not a tomorrow scenario, then we'll be fine. So the question is the money patient? Because there is a lot of cannabis money sitting in psychedelics.
Right.
I don't.
And is that? Go ahead, Baron.
Sorry,
go ahead.
I didn't want to go too far down the rabbit hole, because if you want to find out more answers, you have to check out the Renaissance of Psychedelics with BLG, CSC, and MMP, with CFN Media as our media sponsor.
Good plug.
Yeah.
We'll put the registration down below. Yeah, no, I guess you just follow the money. I always find that it's fascinating, right? Like you're seeing a lot of the same people that were in cannabis are now in psychedelics. So are you suggesting that people they're just following the drug narrative, or have they learned a few things from cannabis? And we asked Jay this question last week, but do they appreciate that there is this longer term investment strategy needed, or strategy is not the word. I mean, it's just, as you mentioned, like these are not going to be companies that are going to make their drug. Like they're going to be bought to a big company if they prove their molecule or prove their therapy. And then, that's where the return comes from the stock. But no,
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, look, this is just my personal opinion. I think, in order to really look at this,
Yeah.
I mean, let's look at the early stage cannabis money, not so much the late stage cannabis money that came in, because that was obviously different levels of sophistication, institutional. But if you look at the early money, you have to keep going back. That was really mining money, right? That was really money
Yeah.
from before. And so it honestly, and that's part of our strength as the Canadian venture public markets, right? Is that we are willing to deploy high risk capital, right? So yes, is it the same people that were doing the mining deals, that did the early cannabis deal, that are doing the early psychedelic deals? Yes, but we should celebrate that as a strength, because you know what? There's country. Look at all these countries internationally, right? Look at you guys. How many companies are you guys getting from Australia, from Singapore, right? Why don't they have capital in Singapore and Australia? They do, but not the venture capital, not the high risk public venture capital. So to me, I find that particularly now even more interesting, where the world has become so nationalistic, closing borders, everything else is closed. But look at our capital markets.
Yeah.
They're thriving, right? There's no borders.
Well, I would argue, I would support that point by saying that it's not just the market, or at least consider when you say market, that there's the regulatory and compliance side, which you're a key cog in, right? And that, the reason a lot of these companies we're seeing from the US now coming to a CSE is that actually the cost of capital is dramatically lower by going public on a venture style market north of the border than, say, raising a Series A in the US, or even going public, as an earlier stage. It's not really possible because in the US, you have the Sarbanes-Oxley compliance, you have, the insurance concerns because of the liability. And in Canada, we've eased off on a lot of that stuff, yet still have that trusted marketplace. Can you maybe just elucidate a bit on that? Because in Canada, you're right in the mix. Like I said, Canada has much different accounting standards than the US. We're on IFRS. Do you see that US model having, the way we look at it, having completely just curbed early stage public financing because of the accounting issues down there, because of Sarbanes, because of other issues post Enron?
So I think that the regulatory side is one element of it, and I'll call it risk, right? Not just regulate. It's risk.
Yeah.
Just you mentioned insurance, which is such a perfect like comparison point. So I've been a director on a company listed Canada, thinking over there. Immediately, just DNO. Forget anything else. DNO. You're looking at $10 to $20 million extra
Yeah.
in premiums,
Yeah.
right? And so you're thinking like, wow, as an early stage public company, like that's $20 million. Like how do you justify that? And so I think that's, look, so I think there's the risk element, and all the other stuff falls out of it, like SOX and all that. Auditors are going to charge you more, lawyers are going to, it's a trickle effect, right? And you know what? You get sued a whole heck of a lot, way more. Look at all these short seller reports, right? Whether you were right or wrong, whether you were just or unjust, a short seller report immediately leads to a lawsuit, even if you're
Yeah.
100% in the right. So there's so much cost driven towards that. For me, the other thing that I always think about is that why we are different than the US is that, to be honest, like, we don't have a version of Silicon Valley, a thriving version of Silicon Valley. So all these early stage companies that go to like a Silicon Valley or a private venture scenario, right, to get venture capital, that role is really played by our public venture markets in Canada, not exclusively,
Yeah.
right? But it is a big driver of getting venture money. And so, coming back, I know we keep coming back to cannabis, but people were very critical of cannabis, right? Like, hey, look at all these companies, they didn't make it. I can't believe. But you know what? It was a startup industry. What startup industry does 100% of the players make it?
There are
Right?
a lot of carcasses and dried up bones on the road on the side of Sandhill Road. You know what I
There's
mean? Like,
one
Yeah.
company that survived the tech boom, that was there before the tech boom, and who is here now. There's one.
Oh,
There's only one.
this is good for anyone who's watched Barrington's programming in the past. You should know this answer.
Yeah. So there's one, and I'm not even going to tell you. I'm going to let you figure it out. There's only one company that was there before the tech boom, and it's a fascinating story as to how they survived, but they did. So
You know what? We'll tell them after the break because
no,
we don't
I'm not
have-
telling them, man. No,
No, you can't leave people hanging.
no,
man.
I'm going to leave you hanging. Do the research or watch the show. No, it's the point is, the industry doesn't look. No industry looks the same way 5 years later. There's none.
Yeah.
And this is no different, which is again further evidence that it's a real industry.
Yeah, the way I look at the way I talk to people about it is that if you opened up the books of a venture fund in Silicon Valley and you saw the 100 investments they make, how many of them were duds and how many of them were unicorns?
Oh.
You never hear about the 98 that never made it.
Nope.
Right?
Just go to any angel. Go to an angel meeting. Go to a venture capital angel group, and talk to somebody there and say, how many investments are you involved in? And the number is going to be between 16 and 25.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
how many are, sort of good? 2 to 3.
Yeah.
Every time. That's the way the game's played. Now, getting back to one of your earlier points, I actually think the investor is different going into psychedelics than it is into cannabis. And the reason for that is there were a lot of people that, quote unquote, got burned on the last dip with cannabis. And so entering this, they're a little more cautious. They're doing a little bit more homework. And the smart money is dipping their toe in. They're not going gangbusters. Cannabis did teach a lot of lessons, both positive and negative, and that's why I think there's a difference with the investor.
Yeah,
but that's my 2 cents.
Can I throw in 2 cents on the cannabis side?
We're up to 4 cents.
I mean, on the sense of like, I don't think it's done, right? I think that
God, no.
Because we have all three of us have seen the second wave of U.S. cannabis companies as an example, and these companies are real, right? They're legit. They have great top line. They have great bottom line. Of course, right now the market
and they
is
have
not
great management.
Yeah,
Management, the
exactly.
2.0 is not just for the company; it's for the management as well.
It is, and so I mean, to me, like obviously the market right now is tough for them to come in, but one thing I'm seeing is a lot of these guys. There's a bunch of these SPACs sitting in the U.S. that are gathering dust and not being able to they've raised hundreds of millions. What we're seeing is that they're looking to access the U.S. SPACs and then immediately having to delist because they're cannabis. And guess where they're coming? Right? But the money is going to be raised at the SPAC level because the money's there and the SPACs are desperate because guess what? There isn't enough deals to fill these $200-300 million SPACs. These deals don't grow on trees.
No, these were all pre-COVID. They're all pre-COVID.
Yeah. That's a whole nother kettle of fish. This and the SPAC thing is actually just picking up steam in the US. It's becoming very popular. And for those who don't know what a SPAC is, who are watching, it's basically just a large pool of capital put up by a bunch of investors to, I would say, tempt a deal to come to their shell and do it, basically an RTO, reverse takeover, and then go public. So those people who form that initial capital, they got cheaper stock. They don't have to buy directly into the company that's as a startup. They can wait till it matures, come in, do the RTO, and then they likely have a pretty decent position that they can liquidate in the public market.
They can also walk away from the deal after 2 years, I think.
Yeah, so, but I guess they're all on a timeline, right? Like So they need to get these deals, and they're seeing that hey, some of these cannabis deals are good targets, but they can't be listed on a U.S. exchange immediately thereafter.
Right.
So
that's back to that thread of following the money, right? And one thing I did want to add though was, we track our numbers and we talk to people and don't take for granted that again people use our market and then raise the money internationally as well. We talk about mining. a lot of mining finance happens over in the UK and in Europe. And, it's because there's that trust in our Canadian market, but, there's some deep pockets. Go walk through London sometime and you start to realize that our idea of wealth, our idea of what we see on Bay Street and even on Wall Street is, it's not even close to what they have over there as far as, historic wealth and Middle Eastern wealth. And this is the stuff that likes to speculate as well, in our resource-based economy. So, I don't know, just a little note about whenever you're allowed to go back to London, ride the tube. And
It's true. It's very true.
yeah. I don't know. What else is going on in your world? Why did you become an accountant? Let's get into just some real human interest stuff for a sec.
Oh my God. I actually didn't want
James, what are you? Where are you going?
Where am I going with this one? Yeah.
I the last thing I wanted to do in the world was actually be an accountant. I come from a family of accountants, so
Okay.
I kind of messed up and fell back into it. And I guess let's just say it might have been genetic. So
Couldn't help yourself.
I tried so hard.
What would you have done if you weren't an accountant?
You know what? I don't know. I was doing
You're a smart guy.
I was doing economics for a while, but like really that's not that far different from accounting at the end of the day. I thought it was very different, but really it's I don't know, maybe banking. I think I could have easily seen myself in banking. But maybe we come full circle.
Yeah. There's still time.
We've taken up enough of Mr. Raza's time.
This was a great chat, man.
This is we're always happy to have you, and we appreciate the business, but more importantly, we appreciate the friendship and the support. And for your accounting needs, accounting and audit needs, contact maruf.raza@mmp.ca.
Oh wow.
Not com, ca. Because I used to send them emails to the com, and it never replied.
And questioned me, why have you not?
Why are you not writing me back?
Are you guys on the boards right now? At Rogers in Edmonton? I can't remember. I was just watching the game.
You know what? I don't know. Okay. I'm pretty
You
sure.
were?
Yeah, no, I don't know where. I assume so because those are usually multi-length contracts, right? So I don't think you can get out. It's
Okay.
but
Left field wall.
I'm just looking forward to one of these days maybe we can go back to MJ Biz. Certainly doesn't look like this year, but
No.
I want to go back to the buffet at Rogers Center in Toronto and
that's
eat and watch like 5 innings and go home.
that is the perfect day.
All right. Well, Maruf, thanks so much. Thanks for being on the Aftermarket. Thanks for supporting the program. And thanks for being a great guy, great friend, great colleague, and a collaborator. We look forward to more and certainly wish you all the best as we continue to navigate all this fun business outside of our walls of our homes and our safe places. Keep well.
Appreciate it, guys. Take care.
All right. Thanks, Maruf.
All the best. Cheers.
Bye.
Well, there you have it. I think Maruf was like our 6th or 7th guest on Aftermarket, and frankly, I'm very thankful of having good people like that in my life who can educate me and help me stay somewhat sharp. Barrington, we've produced a lot of content on the network on CSETV.
Yes.
Yes, and
yes.
Mostly credit to you and Anil Mall, our colleague and friend in Vancouver. We've had a couple of videos that I think are worth highlighting just because it illustrates just how unique the ecosystem is and some of the great, ingenuity and ideas that are coming. And one of them I never expected that I would think would be something I just never thought I'd see the day. Maybe I got to take a step back on this one. Do you know the company I'm about to talk about, TAAT?
They do smoking alternatives.
Well, they're recreating the cigarette, but using hemp and CBD instead of tobacco and nicotine.
Right. And
their new CEO, Seti Coscarella, I've known him since he worked at Philip Morris. We had lunch not too long ago before you couldn't have lunch with someone. And well, I guess you can, but you know what I mean. And in a way where you're not thinking about getting infected. And yeah, So they were working on a IQOS was the name of the product. It's a I guess it's not like it's not a vape, so it doesn't burn, and or maybe it's burn not smoke. That's the whole thing that they're going after.
Okay.
So he was helping develop that product. They want to bring people off combustible cigarettes into these IQOS products, and he's now at TAAT. They've got these hemp cigarettes, which basically are meant to, by all intents and purposes, look, feel, taste, smell like a tobacco cigarette. That being said, it has the additive effect of CBD and not the effect of nicotine, which last time I checked is arguably one of the most addictive substances in the world. And obviously they lace cigarettes with all sorts of interesting things to keep you coming back for more. Go watch the video we did. We did a brief interview with them, Philip Shum. It's on the TV, CSETV channel. I will link it. And if anything, just keep an open mind. It's a solution to a problem, which is a major issue, but also a huge business opportunity. It's something like a $900 billion global market, the tobacco industry. So that's all happening on CSE under the symbol TAAT. Seti Coscarella, check it out. Now, you had one that I thought was really interesting, and it starts with the name.
I volunteered to do this one. It was bee vectoring, and
Yep.
the reason I jumped all over it.
Bees like the bees that buzz.
Yes.
Like the yeah.
They have an office in Mississauga in my hometown, so I have to, and I did the interview, and I learned. I had no idea what bee vectoring did, what it was, and I don't want to. I want you to go and watch it to learn. It's using bees as control to control your crops, to mitigate crop damage. I had no concept of how many bees, and I sort of whispered it during the interview. It was like, how many bees do you use? Like a couple hundred? And he's like hundreds of thousands. And they are programmed and it works. So if you get a chance, check out bee vectoring. They also appeared on our show Tech Tuesday, which we just had an episode this past week. Tech Tuesday every Tuesday, 4:15 Eastern Standard Time, 2:15 Mountain Standard Time, run by Mark Francis and Grace Pedota.
You are basically TV Guide.
Yes.
That's how many programs you have. And I guess on a final note this week, we just wanted to raise some awareness. So I'll leave it mostly to you, Barrington. All I want to say is thank you to Tennis Canada, who sent us some nice swag. But it was to help spread a message. And what's that message, Barrington?
So,
yep.
Here it is. I don't know if you can see it. Tennis Canada, they were absolutely rocked by the Rogers Cup and not having it in Montreal and Toronto. And as you know, a lot of the funding that goes into Tennis Canada and their programs are generated through these tournaments. So you can go to tennis, I think it's Tennis Canada store or tennisstore.com, and you can get your, I guess I'm going to call it a COVID basket box, where you receive a mask, you receive Rogers tennis balls, and hand sanitizer. It's a good cause. These tennis balls are fantastic, by the way.
No, they're the ones they use at the U.S. Open. And
these are.
So like if you want to show up to your local court while you still can before it snows or whatever, rains or whatever, it's legit. You'll look like a stud because you'll have the ones.
These masks are getting sold out.
Masks are amazing.
Support. There's a ton. We have so much talent, so much Canadian talent, homegrown, and it's a shame. Like, I know COVID affects, and we're just trying to do our part. So thank you to Tennis Canada for sending us stuff, and check it out.
Yep. And if you have other messages and swag and things that you want to share with us, we're happy to spread the good word on whatever it is you're doing. Because, and especially sports, we just, as parents, believe in sports so much for the development of our youth. And, it's a good way to get kids out of the house when really there's not many other excuses.
And you know where they are. You know what they're doing. You know where they are. Idle hands and the rest of that saying. So,
well, yeah, and I've told you on Thursday afternoons, I'm now running basically a
I knew you'd get
5-year-old
sucked
and
in.
6-year-old kids fight club.
I know you were gonna get sucked in. It's like, oh, hey, Bear, I'm gonna, I might rent some ice, and 3 weeks later, you have a whole system going. Oh, it's
People, I
so
go there, people
funny.
hand me cash, kids get to skate. It's all good. I'm not making money off of this thing.
It's so fun. Like you're gonna be doing it you're gonna be paying, and I know how it works. I've seen so many people just dip a toe. I'm just gonna try this out, or I'm just gonna help out, and then fast forward, they're team managers, they're coaching, they're on the board.
All I gotta say is that the rink that our kids get to go to for this hour every week, you don't send the address, you send the Google image, satellite image of where it is, because it's the only way you can kind of find the street to get there. But
Oh man,
needless to say, there's demand for it now, mainly because a lot of the programs have been hacked off at the knees, and there's
yeah.
no, there's no games coming up. I mean, it's ridiculous, but
It's week to week, and
yeah.
please, Canada, every province, every territory, region, stay socially distant. Wear your mask.
Wear a Tennis Canada mask if you have one.
Like, please,
Look,
like we want to, we want to resume some sort of normalcy. But yeah, that's it. I'm
not a political statement.
not a
That is
political
just
statement.
no.
It's,
That is just a straight up be rational, be fair, be a good citizen,
yeah,
do your thing, and at some point we'll all be back together, and you'll see Maruf and Barrington and I in Vegas, and that's when life will be back to normal.
yeah. But until then, continue to subscribe. Send us your feedback. Let us know. Let us know what you liked, what you didn't like, and what you'd like to see or hear.
Yeah, we've definitely played with the format the last few weeks, so we totally recognize that. We haven't touched headlines, mainly because we haven't felt too inspired by the news.
The news is depressing, man. Like
News has
straight
kind
up.
of sucked the last couple of weeks, and it's not just headlines. We've got these great guests. We got another one next week. I mentioned about mining, and then we've got so many other things that we've taped over the last few weeks that are really cool. So hit that like button, let us know what you think, and then until next week, we're going to be back, so we look forward to having you join us again.
All right, thanks very
All right.
much.
Thank you. Have a great night.